So if you imagine the perfect roast chicken, it's glassy, it's crispy skin, super juicy, white and dark meat. To do that in the oven is near impossible. But in a pan with a brick, super easy. This is brick chicken. Today I'm gonna be showing you how to debone a bird, season it to perfection with dry brining. Then we're gonna sear it in a pan with the brick, pressing it down for maximum surface contact for crazy glassy skin. Very end, taking the leftover flavors and making a really easy, flavorful pan sauce. We're gonna separate this chicken into two. Right along the spine here, you're gonna cut through the skin. Right along the bone here, you're slicing right through the meat. Knife is right along the bone. These are the oysters on the dark meat. Using the tip of your knife, you're gonna cut through it. There's a bone right here. You'll be feeling it. And you're gonna put all the way along the spine through the cartilage. The rib cage, all the way along the spine. You're gonna flip it back over, locate the keel bone right in the middle, and cut through the skin. Go just to the left about 2 millimeters and cut through the meat. And clip right through it. All right. So we're gonna orient the legs facing away from us. You're gonna grab the wing, locate the joint right here. Just below the joint, you're gonna cut through the bone, and you're gonna score all the way around it. Really common Frenching technique. Once it's completely removed, all you need to do is hyperextend it, and it pops right off. Now going all the way down to the drumstick, you're gonna do the same thing. I remember in culinary school, this like blew my mind. Grab the knee, bend it away, that bone pops right out. It's gonna be lots of tendons and ligaments. Don't worry about those, we'll get to them in a little bit. With dark meat facing away, breast towards you. So we're gonna take your knife just below the rib cage. Score all the way up to the wing joint. Flip it around. And then if you remember when we sliced along the back, peel the meat away a little bit, we're already started just on this side. So now we're just connecting these points. Again, use your fingers when you can, your knife when you have to. We're all the way through. Going up to the shoulder. All right, there's the breast. Now there's one bone right here, still connected to the wing. You're gonna bend it to pop it out. Find the joint. The most important thing while you're doing this is take your time. You shouldn't be removing any chunks of meat. If you're doing that, just stop what you're doing, realign your knife, and make sure you're getting a really good yield and you're not cutting through the skin at all. As you're cutting into it with the tip of your knife, just peel the meat back. And then once you have the bone exposed, knife goes beneath it. Now, holding it at the end, scrape the meat back. You're just looking for the joint. Just cut right through it. It's totally up to you at this point if you want to pull out the cartilage, the kneecap. I'm going to pop it out. So again, just using the tip of your knife, you're going to cut around it. You're going to use your middle finger, ring finger on the back side to push it out, just like that. So you're not going to be able to cut completely through it because in the drumstick, there's a really small bone. So once you get to that, just scrape against it until it comes right out. At the very end, just grab it, pull it out. Now that the kneecap has been removed, all these tendons, ligaments, these will come out really easy. So it's totally up to you. They might look gnarly and you're like, I gotta get them out of there. But any dark meat, any thigh, chicken legs that you've eaten and really enjoyed, those have been in there. So as though they seem really tough and chewy, they aren't in chicken. They are an issue in turkey, but not chicken. So just to show you the technique though, all you need is some needle nose pliers. Grab it, pull it right out. It's a good one. So we've removed the majority of the bones. I do keep one bone in. This is the drumette. I like to keep this in because it kind of gives some shape to the bird. You know, if you remove all the bones, it kind of turns into this like meat patty of sorts. And it's also the hardest bone to remove. So I leave it in there. I think it's a nice visual and it makes butchery a little bit easier. I find that the bones are actually going to cause the white and the dark meat to cook at much more of an uneven rate. So removing the bones and having the dark meat a lot thinner in ratio to the thicker white meat, they cook very closely at the same rate. So deboning it will make serving it a lot easier, will making the cooking a lot more consistent and reliable and really juicy meat. So I recommend deboning, makes it a little bit easier. Sure, you could leave the bones in, but this is kind of a foolproof precision method for brick chicken. So now that we've deboned the bird, we're gonna take it to Pound Town. What we need to do, so the white and the dark meat cook at the same rate, is using a small pot. We're gonna thin out the legs by pounding them a little bit. That way the dark meat cooks at a faster rate while the breasts are still nice and juicy. You're looking for the breast to be about twice as thick as the legs. All right, thickness is dialed in between our white meat and our dark meat. Now we just need to season it up. All right, so we're setting the stage for dry brining. Dry brining is super key is because it's gonna season the meat really well, changing the texture, firming it up a little bit. Flip it over. So we got all the salt on there. Now we're gonna skewer it up. So using about 8-inch skewers, we're gonna fold the thigh back up. Push the breast and the thigh together, and then getting down here, right in the middle of it, you're gonna poke the skewer through the leg. And that's why I like to do it skin side down, is because you can actually see the skewer go through all these muscles. All right, so the skewer is all the way through the breast side. What's really important though is to thread the skin through it. This is important because once you're searing, everything is gonna tighten up. And that way it's gonna keep the skin taut on the surface so you get a nice, thin, crispy crust to it. For the second skewer, I like to actually go between the drumstick and the thigh. Once you're all the way through the breast, grab the skin, thread it through. You're gonna wanna keep at least 1 inch exposed to the skewer on both sides. So now it just needs time in the fridge. Minimum 16 hours to dry brine. This is also gonna allow the skin to dry out, helping it sear in the pan really well. So skin side up, put it in the fridge uncovered and forget about it, but come back the next day. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for, we finally got to the point where we can use a brick. When you're searing your brick chicken, it's all about maximum surface contact with the pan. So that leads us to what weight you want to use on top, a press. Brick, being traditional in the name, is great. All you need to do is wrap it with foil. That way you can keep all of your dirt sediment from getting into your food. There you go, 5-pound brick ready to go. We're gonna preheat our skillet. This is about medium-high heat. We're gonna set the control freak to 350. With how dense this is in the heavy metal, it's gonna take a while to preheat. So before you add oil or your chicken, it's really important that it's fully preheated. This cook time is really short, about 20 minutes for a half chicken. So make sure everything's up to temp before you start cooking. Now it's time to add your fat. So I feel like a lot of times people are always want to substituting maybe an animal fat or butter in place of oil. I don't recommend that for this. I really recommend a neutral oil, grapeseed, canola oil, because it doesn't have all those milk solids in there that are going to accelerate the browning. Oil's really good because it's going to sear it over an extended period of time for 20 minutes. You don't want to add that color too quick. This is a little bit of patience to this. So we're going to add the oil to the pan. So oil should heat up pretty quick, but we're gonna give it about 30 seconds to start shimmering and smoking just a little bit. On standby, I also like to have about a 12 by 12 inch piece of foil. This is great to put down first because it's gonna help reduce the amount of splattering. It'll seem fine at first, but over the 20-minute cook, a little bit of oil spraying out on the sides could generate quite a mess. So small piece of foil goes a long ways. All right. Grabbing the skewers. There we go. There we go. Foil goes on top. And put your weight. Another reason I really like the brick as a press is you can see it's at an angle here. Because we pounded the dark meat out thinner than the white meat, it's kind of at an angle. So that way you can make sure that the legs are fully in contact with the pan, the breast at the same time. So this cook's gonna go for about 20 minutes, but every 5 minutes, we're gonna lift up the foil, take a look at it, rotate it around the pan. So on the thighs and the breast right here, you could tell that there needs to be a little bit more pressure in the middle between the breast and the legs. So we're gonna rotate it about 90 degrees and adjust it to a little bit more the middle of the bird. We're gonna let it ride for 5 more minutes, check it again. All right, we're at 10 minutes. Great color, starting to develop nice golden brown between the breast and the leg. Right on track, 5 more minutes. All right, so now we're at 15 minutes. Let's check on our skin, looking good. Thing you'll notice too, you'll get this beautiful like white ring around the raw meat. That's a good sign that it's been cooked through about 75% of the way through and flipping it over to just carry over. This is the point when you're gonna be checking the temperature. So we're gonna be cooking this to about 145 degrees Fahrenheit on the skin side. We're gonna flip it over for just about 30 seconds to 60 seconds to hit our core temp. So we still have about 30 degrees to go. So we're almost there. So we're gonna cover it back up. And at this point, I like to check it about every 1 to 2 minutes. Though this is probably one of the most hands-off ways of cooking a chicken besides simple roast chicken, after 15 minutes is a really important point when you should start monitoring it. We're trying to cook the breast to about 145 degrees. The last 20 degrees will happen really fast. So stay around, check the temperature about every minute. The cook time of this bird on the skin side will really vary. It depends on the size of your bird, how you skewered it, the orientation of the dark meat to the white meat, lots of variables here. But what's really important to remember, no matter what the size is 15 minutes into the cook is when you need to start checking the internal temperature, and the cook time might take anywhere from 18 minutes up to 22 minutes. So we're at 144, let's see where we're at. I like to double check where my probe is, making sure it wasn't doing something crazy where it was shoved into the pan. So now, holding the skewers, we're gonna flip it over. This is a really quick cook, about 30 to 60 seconds. We're just looking for an internal temperature of 150, right where we wanna be. While we have this resting for 5 minutes, we're gonna use that time to make an umami pan sauce, and they'll time out perfectly. So while the chicken's resting for 5 minutes, we're gonna capitalize on that time and make a really nice pan sauce. We're on the clock though. This chicken, the skin is super, super crispy right now, and it's at its peak. So we wanna catch it at the right tail end of the rest with that delicious sauce. So let's get started. First things first, we're gonna strain out most of the fat. We're gonna keep a little bit in here though. So we're gonna be on medium heat, minced shallots. In the pan, you can see there's lots of toasty bits right here. That's gonna be so much flavor, so much color, giving us a really nice brown sauce. Make sure you're scraping the edges. I also like to avoid large clumps. That means the shallots aren't cooking even. So if you see clumps, just break them up with your spatula. Now we're gonna go in with the white wine. Totally up to your flavor preference. This is a great time to pull out your cheaper stuff. So it doesn't matter if you're making a real quick pan sauce or one that can take a couple days. It's all about building up flavors. Everything has a place, and you're gonna be intensifying the flavor every step of the way. Now we're gonna add our stock to it. Thyme leaves, black pepper, tatouille bouillon powder. I know, it's like, Nick, you're cheating a little bit. Sure, I like tatouille though. I think a little bit, it's gonna bring out a lot of that savory chicken flavor. If anything, it's a shortcut. Okay, so we're getting close here. So what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at the bubbles, the viscosity of the bubbles, the amount of them. You'll start to notice they'll get thicker and the bubbles will be a lot larger. This means it's getting really close. So at this point, I'm gonna turn off the heat, and this is when we're gonna mount it with butter. I like to do about 1.5 inch cube. Resist the urge to do these big motions. Butter melts right into the middle here. And that's where I'm whisking. Every so often, you can move it around. If you're also really worried about breaking your sauce, just first add like 25% of the butter. Whisk it in and then add more butter. But this is low stakes here. This is something like you would have taken this pan and just cleaned it. You know, we're taking what was left over from our amazing brick chicken, making a sauce. I like to add lemon at the very end. You don't really want to cook it. You want that fresh flavor, just a little bit. So it's been our 5-minute rest. Let's slice it up with a dry towel, push it forward, maybe a little twisting motion, and they should come out really easy. And now that you see the shape of it, this is why I keep the drumette bone intact. It kind of brings it back to the shape of a chicken. That way it's not something completely foreign. For slicing, you have the white meat, dark meat. I like to slice against it. That way each portion has a little bit of each because they're both super succulent. About a 1/2 inch slices. I like to slice on a bias. Once it's fanned out, the skin will sit above the sauce in the plate and it doesn't just fall over and sit in its own juices. That's pretty good. Boom. With a brick in a pan, super crispy skin, super juicy white meat, dark meat. Set it and forget it. It's really couldn't be easier than this. It has a beautiful shine to it. To me, that's a key indicator that it's been brined well. Dry brine from the seasoning, the salt. Deep roasted flavor coming from the pan searing with a bright, fatty herbal sauce. You could enjoy this chicken all year round or even on the holidays. Kind of has an elegant French bistro flavor to it. We have so many other recipes and guides. We've cooked hundreds of chickens. We've explored every technique out there. Check it out. This is brick chicken. Brick chicken. This is brick chicken.
Subscribe to our channel and visit chefsteps.com for more tips, recipes, guides, and tools to help you level up in the kitchen.